Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Hello and welcome to our State of Affairs portion of the program, where we're very pleased to be joined by Mr. Phil Hill. Phil, welcome to the Collegium.
Well, thank you, Donald. I really appreciate being here again.
Well, there's some interesting things happening in the United States of America.
Right, an election.
Right, you got it. What is your assessment of that development? What are they talking about, and what are the things that, in your opinion, they should be talking about?
Well, they're not, I would say that even both sides are not talking about the issues to the extent that we would hope. And that's a real problem with American democracy right now. That on the one hand, we have a paradox that on the one hand, in order to win the election, you have to not appear too extreme, but on the other hand, there doesn't seem to be a middle, as there is in Europe, for instance, where there's a kind of a consensus, the consensus of the nation is located that you can fight over. In the United States, it seems to me that consensus is gone, and everybody's polarized, and I guess they're fighting over a couple of percent in the middle who are, not particularly political and therefore maybe sway one way or the other. And those couple of percent are going to sway the swing states. And to me, that's not democracy. And it's not like, if all you're worried about is winning the electoral votes of Florida or North Carolina or something like that, so that you can, push your total over to the magic 270 electoral votes. That's the structural situation that makes it very difficult, for either side to be democratic. And of course, I'm not equating the two sides either.
What has brought us to this juncture, Phil?
Good question. I mean, maybe it's the fact of that we had talked earlier about this, and you cited a column by Roger Cohen, one of my favorite columnists, also from Washington, and he was writing for the Washington Post all the time, and he connected it with the relative decline of the United States in the world, which is inevitable. When you have this, I don't know, 3/4 or more of the world, which was colonized by the Europeans, didn't count. We talk about the world, and we meant Europe and North America, and that's changing. They're coming back, and so necessarily the relative importance of North America and Europe is going to be reduced. If you increase the size of the pie by 50%, then even if you have the same size piece, it's still half of the percentage of what it used to be. And so the Republicans have just not come to terms with that. To them, they have this religion that says America is the greatest, and that's not even in question. And where Obama, I think, reflects from his background and from his philosophy a willingness to find a way for America in this new environment. And if you look back at history, the tragedies that have befallen major powers, it's usually not figuring out what the story is.
Right.
And the story is that we're 5% of the world. And the other 95% U.S. population,
right?
And the other 95%, are there too, and they're back.
Might the United States benefit more in the future by a more cooperative attitude towards the rising countries, China, India, Brazil, Africa? Might it be better for them down the road?
Well, certainly. I mean, it's a kind of a thin line. We are still, if you're committed to democracy, then you are committed to democracy in those countries too. It's just the question of, do they get to develop democracy on their own terms, or do they have to take it as an import from the European, North American thing? I mean, it's, we invented it, but it's, modern democracy in any case. But it doesn't mean that the way that we do it is necessarily the best for everybody. And I think that everybody has to find their own way. And I think the Europeans, first of all, they understand that better. And second, they also know, they are more democratic, just plain, to put it bluntly. They're more democratic now than the United States is. The United States, the erosion of democracy within the United States means that nobody really looks to the United States as a beacon of democracy anymore. They, if they want to figure out how to do it, they ask the EU.
Right, which just won the Nobel Prize, right?
Right, which just won the Nobel Prize, which Obama won too. I think they should have waited and given it to him after he'd done something to earn it, and I think he felt the same way himself, in fact.
Right. Well, what do you say in terms of the Nobel Committee when they're offering these prizes to Europe or to Barack Obama? Is this a means by which they look at these entities and look at the potential that they have, and then it's a source of encouragement to continue on the road that they seem to be going? Sure. Does that work in your opinion?
Sure, I don't know if it works. It's always a political prize, especially that one, that the Peace Prize, that says it's more a prize on the future. It's like a down payment on future performance to a certain extent. Like there have been several Nobel Prizes for the Israelis and Palestinians for making peace, and they still haven't made peace. It's because they were trying to get them to do it, to continue on that road, and what happened? They didn't. And the same is true I think of Obama that that maybe they were trying to get him to do things that he couldn't do. So maybe who knows? Maybe they wouldn't have given it to him yet because there's a number of things that he failed to do, which we all would have probably wished he had been able to do, but couldn't. As for the European Union, I mean, it definitely has to do with what's going on now. I mean, it's saying, stick together. You're doing a good job. Don't let it fall apart on this issue of this financial crisis. Mm-hmm. And also, maybe remember that the Nobel Prize comes from Scandinavia. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's a little bit of an inner Scandinavian thing. For the Scandinavian, let's say, leadership, mm-hmm. telling their own people, hey, let's not be so skeptical about mm-hmm. the EU, because they are very skeptical, Mm-hmm. I mean, they live up there in their beautiful little corner and everything's fine, and they say, we don't want to have anything to do with Europe, let them make their own mess. That's their attitude about half the time, and the other half the time is, sure, we're part of Europe. But I think they were trying to encourage their own people a little bit to support. Mm-hmm.
Well, I remember reading, uneasy lies the head that wears the crown. Yeah. So in the case of Barack Obama or in the Middle East and other situations, there's so many other factors and there's so many other interests that affect the best aspirations of any of these persons or the governments that wish to solve their problems. Solving the problems between certain entities is not so easy when these entities have to deal with other interests. So how do you work that out, Phil? I mean, you talked about Israel and the Palestinians or the situation with Europe. There's different opinions about how that situation can be handled. And certainly with what Barack Obama has attempted to do, there's a lot of other interests there, too. How do you handle that?
Well, I mean, we'll see after the election. I think that if Romney were elected, it would be a catastrophe for the United States because he has absolutely no idea what the United States needs to do in order to maintain to some extent its position. Europe is moving together, mm-hmm. and Europe is going to come out of this crisis with a high degree of unity, mm-hmm. or a much higher degree of unity than it has had. Mm-hmm. What does that mean? It means that you will suddenly have a large power which is larger than the United States, mm-hmm. And has a lot of weight in the world, mm-hmm. And is maybe less divided than the United States, mm-hmm. because the United States is extremely polarized right now. Mm-hmm. And a U.S. president who doesn't understand that at all, who's structurally unable to understand that, is going to be in deep trouble. What he said in the famous secret speech, that was, recorded by some waitress with her little push cart there. Everybody focuses on the one thing about it, saying that 47% of the American people are a bunch of welfare bums. Yeah. But there was another thing that he said, which is, in the long run, much more important in terms of his ability to be president. Mm-hmm. I mean, let's be cynical about it and say you can be president and consider half your people idiots, and you can still be an effective leader of the country. Mm-hmm. You may not be a very the kind that you and I would like, but you could still be effective. You could be a tyrant, But this guy really says, in that the second point that he made in his speech, that the Middle East problem is insoluble, and they're just going to leave it the way it is and let it ride, because he can't figure out a solution. I mean, he doesn't realize that you have to move away from this extremely uncritical pro-Israeli mm-hmm. position and move toward a position of even-handedness and justice for the Palestinians. Mm-hmm. If you don't do that, you can't solve the problem. Mm-hmm. But it's not just a problem of Israel and Palestine. That whole Middle East, you know, we were fighting a war, a dual war in two parts of the Middle East at the same time, in Iraq and in Afghanistan. And it's been going on, it's probably now the longest war we've ever fought or something. And not only that, but we have all these other problems in the same area with Iran, with Libya, with Mali, for instance, with
Egypt.
You know, Egypt. Well, Egypt is sort of sorting itself out, but yeah, right. I mean, in a lot of these countries that used to be our allies, like Egypt and Turkey, just the two biggest and most important. You know, they're kind of moving away from us. If you don't solve that Israel-Palestine problem, that is right at the core of it. If you can solve that, you can start solving the other ones. But that is the core of it. That's like this festering wound that's infecting the entire body there. And you know, you can you know, put bandages all over the rest of the body. It doesn't do any good, you know, because that poison is from that festering wound is going through, you know, is going throughout the whole region. And that is the prime foreign policy issue in the terms of traditional foreign policy, of just solving problems, you know, war and peace type problems. That is the one issue that that the next president has got to solve. And to have a president who can just sort of say, well, you know, I don't see any short-term solutions, so we'll just let it ride. You know, we'll do something else. I mean, that's really what George W. Bush did. You know, he came up with the last year of his presidency, well, we're going to solve this real quick. You know? What did he do? Nothing. And if you don't solve that, you know, it is going to blow up. You know, it's not going to just, you know, slide on the way it has been for a while. It's coming to a head. It is going to blow up, and it's going to take the rest of the region with it in some way or other. I mean, you've got a situation where you've got both two powers moving toward nuclear weapons. I mean, Israel has had them for a long time. But, you know, this is something for Germany. You know, those German submarines, you know, that can deliver those, you know, Israeli nuclear weapons, you know, to wherever that submarine happens to be. Well, you know, those submarines are the best submarines in the world. The United States and the other major powers have gone into nuclear submarines. They are much too big, clumsy, and expensive to be of any real good. These small German submarines can do everything that those big nuclear submarines can do without being seen. And they can't fire intercontinental ballistic missiles, but you don't need to. They fire a cruise missile out of their torpedo tube, and you can, if you're in front of somebody's coast, you know, you can, it's just as good. It's a nuclear weapon. And it's, those submarines are really dangerous. I mean, they are, and Germany has got to realize it is not doing a minor arms deal here. It is providing the only nuclear power which is, you know, really dangerous, you know, because it's uncontrolled, you know, with the wherewithal to attack.
Once again, it's sort of the issue of inequality that Professor Stieglitz talks about in his new book, and how it not only works in the countries, but from what you're saying, it's also an issue that should be addressed internationally.
Oh, of course. I mean, we have to start seeing the world as you know, as consisting of actors who have a certain level of equality with one another. But that means also pushing for democracy in those countries. We should be supporting the Democrats. I'm very heartened by the Arab Spring. I mean, obviously, you get you know, any kind of revolution, you always have the crazies, you know, hitching a free ride, like the people who attacked our consulate in Benghazi. You always have that in any revolution.
So I think it's pretty clear where you might have already, or you will be casting your vote.
I have already. Well, actually, I voted for the Green Party candidate because I come from Washington, D.C. The last time, I never vote for the Democrats. I'm a Green here. I'm a Green. I voted for her because, last time I voted for Obama. I was in the States and I voted for Obama, and I said, I'm going to be able to say that I voted for the first black man to become president of the United States. I want to be able to say that and, be part of this historic activity.
Right.
And but this time I voted for the Green because I felt that she is, well, obviously I would agree with her more than with Obama anyway, but that's easy to do, with a splinter party. But I do believe that we're moving maybe into a new direction in terms of the structure of American politics. This polarization between Democrats and Republicans is becoming, it's not really parties anymore, it's like two nations. And so we may be getting, I think, possibly a new kind of structure of politics in the United States in the coming years. You'll have a breakdown of this party system the way it exists today and an emergence of a new system. And I certainly want the Greens to be they are right now already, the biggest party, other than the two, sort of state parties that we have. But of the smaller ideological parties that exist in the United States, they are by far the largest. And I wanted to support that. And in Washington, D.C., the only effect that I could have with that would be that maybe the Greens would defeat the Republicans. In Washington, I think, was it McCain? Was the last one he was, I think he and maybe George W. Bush managed to stay in single digits in Washington, D.C. And the most the Republicans have ever gotten in some landslide, Reagan or Nixon, I forget, 25%. So there's no question who gets those 3 electoral votes. There's no question about it.
Bill, thanks for joining us here on the Collegium. And let us hope that we have the best for not only the United States, but on an international basis.
And I hope that those other people who voted swing states vote Democratic.
So stay with us, and remember, you are participating in what else but the Collegium. Why is it that Barack Obama touches people so deeply that he moves people to tears, men or women?
I think everybody feels what I felt one day I was in Virginia. There was still this race with Clinton. It was a peaceful afternoon and the TV was running, and I was alone in the house in Virginia. And I looked at him. He was talking on the TV, and that day, I understood the strong charisma. I think he took us by this. He went through the screen. He passed through the screen. He's not an actor. He has this. There is no lie, and I think everybody was also already very fed up. Let's put it like it is. So he arrived at the right moment, and I said, at this moment, I do believe in miracle. I do believe in miracle. We cannot expect this man to make miracles. He is a miracle already. I really go to that. And that peaceful afternoon in Virginia, I learned a lot. And all my people, as you know, I'm a Creole, mixed blood from Madagascar. I asked all my people over there, and they wrote me great emails telling me what they think, what they expect also. So the world is also expecting.